TNA officials are working on getting clearance on WGN, an early Saturday morning time slot that would cost them $50,000 a week. That would require an increase in weekly buys for their $10 pay-per-views of $6,000 each week to justify the expense, since TNA sees only about $5 per order. For promotion drawing between 8,000 and 20,000 buys per week over the last year, that's a huge expectation. The early Saturday morning time slot is aimed at kids, not exactly the demographic TNA is chasing at this point with their product content. So, TNA are trying to get TV. This is a thing we'll talk about more and more into 2004.
And for the rest of its run.
That's true. Jeff Jarrett comes out on TV on the first show of this month promising a game-changing announcement, Liam. An industry-changing announcement that will change the face of TNA forever. Change the face of not only TNA, in fact, he says. Change the face of the entire wrestling business. And it was this Saturday morning paid TV deal with the WGN.
TNA getting TV is legitimately an industry-changing event.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this deal is that deal.
Paying for Saturday morning clearance.
Yeah. But again, it's not their money. If they can get Panda to flip the bill on this, why not? Like, getting TV is what you need.
So if the WGN deal is finalized, and internally it has been talked about as if it's just about a done deal, TNA would be looking at producing an upgraded version of Explosion for WGN. It would be similar to the current format, but they would add a main event caliber match each week. There are also plans to shake up the talent situation with the idea that once they get on WGN, they will be starting from scratch with a new audience. There was talk of creating a strong babyface as the focal point of the promotion, with Hogan not being involved.
Wow, what a unique idea.
To take a guy and try and make him a star for your company?
I feel like companies are much stronger when you don't know who is a babyface or a heel the entire time.
The three choices seem to be Raven, Chris Harris, and AJ Styles.
These are all fine suggestions.
Especially given Raven was the top babyface in this company, getting like legitimate top babyface reactions, and he kept on beating him until he didn't.
Yeah, like legitimately all these are three. Here's a great idea, Garrett.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just listen to me on this one.
Right.
What if we push all three of them as babyface stars?
That's pushing the boat out too far, honestly. I'm
sorry. It could never work to have more than one focus of your company.
Yeah, in fact, you should have none.
Yeah, that, as we've learned, it's what led to some of the best months in company history so far.
You should just have Jeff Jarrett come out every week and just be the entire show. It's just the Jeff Jarrett show, and everyone has to declare loyalty to him, and there's no babyfaces who can get one up on him, and it's just Jeff Jarrett, Jeff Jarrett, Jeff Jarrett.
And the only babyface who can get one up on him is gone.
Yeah. God damn it.
If they were getting TV, I'm surprised they didn't make a bigger play for Sting.
Especially given, like, this is Sting's final appearance. This is the last month Sting appears in TNA until
ever
January 2006. So, not only, like, did they have Sting come in, they had him beat Jarrett to seemingly set up a title match that never happens until frickin' Hard Justice 06.
I'm so ready for, like, actual pay-per-views, by the way. It's a little off topic, but you hit me with the Hard Justice. Justice just then was apparently too much of a tongue twister for me. You hit me with the Hard Justice line just then, and it's really reminded me of how much I love the TNA pay-per-view names.
Yeah, we're not that far away from them. We're 10 months, but
it feels like everything that you've been promising me about TNA is like, it's just 10 months away. Just 10 months.
Well, we'll have 2004, which is... 2004 is a bit of a wacky year, because it is like, they're just swinging.
I don't mind wacky. I will always take wacky over boring.
Because most of 2004, they don't really know what they are anymore. They have no idea what they're trying to be or supposed to be, so they're just kind of swinging.
Yeah, I feel like that's... Not knowing what they are is a lot of the TNA run.
Or at the very least, having two conflicting visions of what they should be.
Yeah. Or trying to be something else.
Or being ashamed of the thing that you are.
Which is like, why are so many like Major League Wrestling companies like ashamed to be what they are?
It's so... I was literally thinking about this the other day, that there is, I think, no industry that has a greater shame of the genre of entertainment that they put out than pro wrestling does. That you see all these companies try to run away from being pro wrestling instead of embracing being pro wrestling because it's a really cool genre of entertainment.
When, like, you know, I hate to be the AEW fan podcast.
Oh, the real home of professional wrestling, is it, Liam?
Yeah. I've just, you know, that's what's so pleasant about it. It's like, hey, we like the thing we are.
Yeah, and every good period of TNA, it's just like, we're not trying to do Attitude Era shite. We're not trying to be sports entertainment. We're not trying to chase WWE.
We're not trying to be WWE as it's happening.
Yeah, we're just being a wrestling show. And then they're good.
Yeah.
TNA sources say the negotiations with WGN, which if you remember last month we mentioned were basically close to being done, are ongoing. Panda officials are considering the idea of going with a half-hour time slot rather than a full hour in an attempt to cut their programming fees in half. TNA officials have yet to officially address the WGN rumors via a wrestler meeting, but both Dixie Carter and Jeff Jarrett have mentioned it during one-on-one conversations with wrestlers.
Giving the Iggy to the people they like.
Yeah, it's scoops, one-on-one scoops. It's funny, we've gone to the same old story in TNA where it's like, last month this thing was guaranteed happening to the degree that they started teasing it on the television show with Jeff Jarrett's big announcement, which that big announcement technically ended up being Johnny Fairplay, following through the story thread.
Yeah, but something so big that it will change the face of the wrestling world, Johnny Fairplay.
That's true, I can't deny it. But here we are in January where we realize this WGN deal may not be happening. So another note, if a deal with WGN has been reached, it's news to members of the office staff. That said, most sources believe in terms of the deal. That said, most service. This is what I get for waking up. You dragged me on. I got up 30 minutes early so I could wake up, but then you still dragged me on early because you're too impatient and bored.
If a deal with WGN has been reached, it's news to members of the office staff. That said, most sources believe the terms of the deal have been set and that it's a matter it's just a matter of TNA management deciding whether they want to sign off on it. One of the strengths of the deal is the WGN is letting TNA keep all of the commercial time. That means TNA would have to sell their own ads, but there are said to be several deals already in place with potential advertisers.
I am so glad you fucked that up because you would have been so smug if you didn't.
In my head the whole time I was going, don't fuck up, which is probably why I did, because I was too busy focusing on not fucking up.
So yeah, later in the month from the Wrestling Observer, there has been little to no talk of late regarding the WGN deal. We're told it's neither dead nor imminent.
It is in stasis.
I do know fans have written WGN in support of them picking up the show, have been told by the station PR specifically, it's not going to happen. The only reason I wouldn't say it's dead, again, this is the I here, is Dave Meltzer. Dave writes in the first person a lot more than PW Torch do. They always write in third person. The only reason I wouldn't say it's dead is because the idea was to buy it as paid programming as opposed to the show they were picking up. And also in the 90s, when we got word from WCW that they were getting WGN in 6 months, the next 6 months saw WGN deny it, but eventually it actually happened. Of course, we know this deal never came through. They never came to fruition. They would buy time eventually on Fox Sports later in the summer. But this WGN deal, which was a done deal, definitely happening at the end of 2003, is now by the end of January 2004, off the table.
And thus begins our company lifelong relationship with television and getting time slots and not having time slots and it getting all thrown about. I don't think there's been a company with a more tumultuous television history than TNA.
And I don't think this is going to be the last time we're going to mention TNA negotiating with WGN in particular. Which was regularly a name that popped up every time TNA were trying to get TV. It was always like, oh, what about WGN? Huh? What about them?
But will they, won't they?
So they should really stop teasing and announcing things like this before they have deals signed and in place. They have not learned their lesson, Liam.
Yeah, but it's funnier this way, so hey.
Although no announcement has been made and the story has not been verified, several TNA wrestlers are under the impression that the deal with Fox Sports Network is complete. The most common belief is that the show will air on Saturday nights, it ended up being Friday afternoons, and that the company will drop the Wednesday pay-per-views in favor of monthly Sunday night pay-per-view events. There is a lot of talk that the deal TNA is negotiating is essentially a 13-week trial period that the network could choose to opt out of if the ratings aren't decent. The first show could air sometime in June. It does. One source says some TNA officials are outright saying once we get on Fox Sports Net when discussing future plans, which make wrestlers believe that it is a matter of when, not if. Some TNA office workers and wrestlers are hoping that the Fsn deal will lead to major changes in how the show is booked. The feeling is that because the show will be tracked by the Nielsen ratings, management will finally see which wrestlers are over and which are not. So unlike the WGN stuff, which was a done deal in December and did not happen, this Fsn stuff is a done deal in March and does in fact happen.
Well, I'm excited for it. I think some structure and definitely some structure from being on television is sorely needed for this company.
And realistically, This company has been booking these weekly pay-per-views as television for nearly 2 years now, so this is what they've been preparing for the whole time.
But now also, I feel like a little less pressure too. Maybe after that 13 weeks, but for now, we have something.
They will be on FSN starting from June. We will talk about that closer to when we get to June.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has been told to tone down the language because people from Fox Sports Net have been watching. BG James on the broadcast even cracked about the Tree Live Crew signature line, "Let's do the damn thing." They were told they can't be used, and he said, "Let's do the darn thing" instead.
That's good to know, but that's how I'll be closing this show.
Yeah, you can't say damn anymore, Liam.
I'm going to say do the dang thing.
Dave notes in the Wrestling Observer, what is the name of FSN's signature primetime show, which is the Best Damn Sports Show? But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, well, if TNA does those ratings, I'm sure they can say damn.
Yeah, you gotta earn it. You gotta bring Ron Simmons in, then you can say damn all you want.
What if he came and he's like, Don!
Yeah. It's like it's real, it's damn real. His TNA catchphrase is darn. Walks in on some dopey Shark Boy segment. Like Shark Boy, Glenn Gilberti, and New Jack are doing something backstage. Ron Simmons walks up. They do the long delayed pause. He looks around. Darn!
And he has the shirt that just says Don.
Yeah, he has a darn shirt.
Can we sell the Don shirt?
There's nothing stopping us from selling a darn shirt.
Yeah!
Liam has finally found a thing we can actually sell.
Darn! That's great.
Oh, I wish Ron Simmons went to TNA now. TNA has started a new marketing campaign called Wrestling Reinvented, which was announced by TNA President Dixie Carter at the CTAM conference in Los Angeles. CTAM stands for Cable and Telecommunications Association for Marketing. Ooh. That was on March 10th. The contest of wrestling...
Don't worry, I got this.
Oh, sorry, yes, this is a Dixie, of course, please.
The contest of wrestling has gotten out of hand. Yeah, can you please do the... I want you to do the in-betweens.
She said.
In an effort to shock the viewer, storylines in our industry that were once considered obscene and now unfortunately commonplace. I've gotten real southern with it. For a period of time now, Total Nonstop Action have made a conscious shift in the content of our shows and will continue to do so. We have distinguished our product from our competitor and provided the pay-per-view buyer with a true alternative. Ooh. Wrestling Wrestling Reinvented is moving forward to the past? What? Wrestling Reinvented is moving forward to the past. Okay. Our programming will be clean, but also innovative, cutting edge, with the high-risk, high-flying athleticism TNA is known for. Follow me on Twitter.
Twitter doesn't exist, but still follow her on Twitter.
Oh, we don't follow her on Twitter. What are we doing?
She has to earn it, goddammit.
I'm doing that right now.
Making up for the fact that we don't follow Dixie.
What the hell?
We are fake fans. We have not listened to our own follow me on Twitter advice.
I'm following it right now.
Part of this change is to make the TV deal with Fox Sports Net, which is insisting on a clean product. At this point, there is no deal. What they are talking about is a tryout. Yeah, we got through all that. This would be similar to the two-way tryout FSN gave UFC that didn't lead to a deal, even though ratings were strong. But TNA want to do it too.
I remember, maybe it hasn't happened yet, but I remember hearing on something, I think it was maybe Between the Sheets, they were talking about how TNA was like reaching out to UFC to do some sort of cross-promoting thing, and UFC were like, no.
Yeah, I think the Jarrett has a meeting with UFC in April that we'll talk about.
That'd be a cool crossover. We get that era of UFC guys crossing over. Instead of Bellator, the guys that made the right decision.
The like weird like paths of TNA and UFC overlapping and overcrossing, particularly in this era. It's because they both had the FSN tryout. They both ended up on Spike. Obviously, like Ken Shamrock is first TNA World Champion. Tito Ortiz, we'll see Tito. We actually have a note about Tito Ortiz this month, but we'll see Tito Ortiz in 2005. But yeah, those like crossover paths are quite interesting, especially when you see UFC went on to become like a juggernaut.
I would like to send our congratulations to Dixie Carter and Surge, who are celebrating their happy anniversary.
Oh, congratulations to them, particularly Surge, who performed some bangers.
Yeah. Trifecta Entertainment, Texfield Tunes, voiceover artist.
Trifecta Entertainment is Dixie's company.
Ah, that's fun.
So they'll start taping the shows on Thursday in Orlando for Impact.
I'm going to retweet their happy anniversary. look like such a nice couple. I mean, a rich couple, but a nice couple.
Like Dixie and Surge, we mentioned, like they were a couple all the way when we first talked about the Panda takeover, that Surge was with Dixie in those meetings.
So just part of the family.
Jeff Jarrett talked to TNA wrestlers about the future of TNA prior to the March 17th show. He said there had been and would be even more rumors regarding the company's attempt to secure a cable television deal, but he added that he would not comment on those matters until the time is right.
Learning from past mistakes, Jeff.
He's not going to start talking about huge announcements on TV long before you have a huge announcement to make. Jarrett told the wrestlers that some of them need to update their looks so that they appear as professional as possible. Jarrett said members from management would be meeting with the wrestlers individually to review their looks. At one point during the meeting, Raven spoke up and told wrestlers that they need to dress the part if they want to be stars, and that led to some snickering behind Raven's back, as some wrestlers during the impression of the office told Raven to lose the jean shorts and t-shirt he had been wearing in favor of returning to the kilt he was wearing before that.
But like that was literally him spicing it up.
Yeah.
And that's what, of course, upsets you, because he kept the music but didn't keep the look.
I hate that music so much. It's terrible.
It's good music.
It's horrific.
It's
so bad. It just does not suit Raven whatsoever, and it makes me angry.
You can get all the ECW stands yelling at you.
Good. His themes, I don't think I've ever heard that song, ECW, but that clearly is bad.
You haven't, well, the real version of the song he used in ECW.
Still, I'm sure the real version of the song is bad.
That's a good song.
It does not work, especially because his TNA theme song is legitimately a banger.
It's a top 10.
He does get the old theme song back. I didn't realize I thought it was like a 2-week thing. He's now had it for like a month and a half.
Yeah. Every time it hits, I go, Garrett's gonna hate this.
I have. I'm like, go back to the other one.
I like both. I like the other one more, to clarify, but I like both.
The latest word on the TV schedule for TNA is that they will tape bi-weekly in Orlando, Florida for Fsn. That didn't turn out to be the case. It turned out to be weekly. Also, the latest word is that the company will continue to produce weekly Wednesday night pay-per-views, contrary to the rumors that they were going to immediately move to a Sunday night schedule. So they did not immediately move to the monthly Sunday night schedule.
You know what? They do deserve those 10 years of worst fucking wrestling promotion.
Just for this one decision where they waited 3 months to do that instead of doing it instantly.
Right, bastards. There's no need to do this to me.
This would be good news for the talent since they were working more dates and thus earning more money. TNA officials have yet...
Good for the talent.
Yeah, they work twice a week now.
Yeah, I'm working twice a week now.
TNA officials have yet to officially announce Fsn Deal to the wrestlers, but sources say office workers have been discussing it with their friends on the talent roster.
Okay.
So one television insider reports that TNA will be paying a programming fee to appear on Fox Sports Network. Meanwhile, sources estimate that the company is losing between 30 and 40 grand currently under the current format. This Fsn deal will speed up the inevitable quickly.
Oh, well, bloody, what do you know, one source?
Yeah, Torch.
Well, we don't know who was that one person.
The latest rumors on the Fsn deal is that TNA are debating between the offered Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time slots or Sunday at 11 a.m. in the morning.
I don't know which one's better.
Apparently the Sunday one is more valuable, just probably because it's a weekend as opposed to being while everybody's at work.
Yeah. Yeah, the Sunday one's probably better, right?
The issue with both of them is that the Sunday is more expensive as well. So it's not like the cost is the same for both. It's that Friday's a worse deal but cheaper, and Sunday's a better deal but more expensive because they're buying time.
I really think some massive conglomerate should offer me money to put on a show.
Listen, it's happened often enough that some, like, Money Mark has been like, do a wrestling company. That it's, like, not out of the question that it might happen to us.
There's one thing we've learnt in the last 5 years, is that some millionaires, and hopefully billionaires, do be secret pro wrestling fans. So there is a chance, no matter how minute, that one of our best friends listening to this podcast could be a secret billionaire. And I'm just saying, let's start a board. Let's work this out. Let's be the number 3.
Wrestle 2.
We don't need to call it Wrestle 2.
But Liam would prefer that.
I would prefer that we buy the Wrestle 1 name from Muda, but...
Jarrett was said to be favouring the Sunday slot. Other sources report that TNA will pay a programming fee to appear on the network, but will retain most of the advertising time, which they will have to sell in-house. There are some sources who claim that the deal will cost TNA as much as 50 grand per hour, although that price could drop if the company elects to go to the cheaper Friday afternoon slot. Most sources are under the impression that it would be a 52-week deal that would give both sides the right to terminate after 26 weeks.
Seems like a fine deal.
Well, it's the Hail Mary at this stage. They realize that the weekly pay-per-view model isn't working. They realize that there's not a paid TV deal on the horizon. So the idea is they go to Fox Sports, they do numbers on TV.
Build a little cachet.
Yeah, build an audience, and also just build like a ratings number that you can then go to somebody else and say, we did this on Fox Sports. Think of what we can bring to you.
Please pay us.
Please pay us being the big part.
Like, just, it doesn't even have to be a lot. Just make it just anything.
Fox Sports Net is very different from USA, TBS, and Spike and other cable networks. It isn't one cable station, but an affiliation of regional stations based around...
Oh, like the ROH TV.
Yes, it's a bunch of syndicated networks. Based around the concept of providing local sports coverage. There is also a national feed that is in many time slots to use as filler programming between the local sports. Most of the FSN stations only do good ratings when broadcasting major local sports events, and the national shows rarely do well. That's some context on what FSN actually is from The Observer.
They should change their name to the Major Local Wrestling Association.
So they can have more wrestling?
No, so that way, because the national shows don't do well.
Oh, yeah, and then just run it in like the local Nashville affiliates. So there's like, we're the Nashville Wrestling Company.
Yeah, that'd rule.
It's clearly the way to go. They would have succeeded much better.
If they had just turned TNA into a territorial thing,
Just a territorial indie that runs on like no local FSN affiliates.
I'm sure Jared'd be happy with that.
Jerry in particular. And the first major news story of the month is a pretty darn big one. TNA officially announced the debut of their first television show, which will debut on Fox Sports Net on Friday, June 4th at 3 p.m. It is the debut of TNA iMPACT.
Wow, future 5-time winner of worst television show.
You know what? 5 is actually pretty low. It's fine. It is like funny to see because Mike Tenay introduced the second show of the month with their groundbreaking, earth-shattering announcement, which was the Fsn Deal. They will be debuting on FSN in June, and it is interesting. Like that show's still on the air today after 18 years and 900 episodes. So it's like, you know what? It is a groundbreaking, earth-shattering announcement. Well done, TNA.
Yeah, with I'm sure at the time people were like ha 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 because everything TNA does gets a ha 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 ha. But knowing where we are now, one of the longest running wrestling television shows ever, so...
It has worked out in at least some way. And look, realistically, like, this is a time buy. With an estimated cost of about 15 grand per episode, and it's a 52-episode deal.
Oh, if it was a fucking movie, they could run this for years.
And an out on both sides after 26, halfway through. And, like, the whole idea here is that it's to get on TV, build an audience, get decent ratings, and try and get something better than buying time on FSN. Whether that's FSN paying them to do the show, or whether that's finding something on another television network. And we know, like, that gamble paid off. It ultimately resulted in a Spike TV deal. So all the losers and haters, when this deal was announced and they were like, this company is still kind of doomed, like this is the last gasp play that probably won't work, you were wrong. It did work.
I mean, like, it's not a bad idea. I don't know. I mean, listen, would we all prefer that our wrestling television show gets picked up from Warner for millions of dollars and then immediately gets a bump in it like 6 months in? Yes, that's the ideal scenario. But when you have nothing else, you might as well go for this play. You're already going to lose the money, it's fine. You, like, bankruptcy and then get out of paying it, you're fine.
Yeah, and it's Panda's money, who cares? So...
Yeah. Like, this is a great idea. It's a great gamble. And, like, I get it.
And when you look at where the company is now, where the company is in May 2004, what else can they do? Like, the weekly pay-per-views aren't cutting it. Everybody knows that. They have to continue producing them or else the company goes under. It doesn't exist. But it's not like there's suddenly going to be an audience of millions of people who are going to start buying these pay-per-views. That's not the path forward for this company. So they have to start looking about, like, well, what can be? Obviously television, paid television ideally, but they can't get paid television. They couldn't get it in 2002. They still can't get it now. How can they increase their chances of getting paid television? By having a proven television product. So that's their gamble. That's their step. That's their pay at an estimated 15 grand per episode to get on TV.
They got to build their reel.
And it's a similar like case to, well, the only real option they had at the start was weekly pay-per-views when you really like drill down into it. It's a similar case here. It's like their only reasonable step forward is this paid TV deal, whether it was with WGN or FSN or whoever, to find somebody to put you on the air for a year so you could basically have a proof of concept.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. I'm into it. I'm into this idea. I'm looking forward to TV. I'm looking forward to the pay-per-views stopping.
That's not for another few months, but sure.
We'll get there. There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
The time slot isn't TNA's first choice, but the prestige of being affiliated with FSN can open doors in the future. If ratings are strong enough and the product is considered up to standards, TNA could shift into a better time slot. Jarrett was scheduled to appear on FSN's Best Damn Sports Show, period. Their marquee show, basically. That's not just sports.
This show keeps getting brought up in the TNA ethos.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, you know, in the 2 and a bit years now that we've covered, the Best Damn Sports Show, period, keeps getting mentioned.
Well, you will eventually have a full crossover with the Best Damn Sports Show, period.
Oh, the Best Damn Wrestling Show, period.
That's the name of the crossover.
Holy shit.
So Jarrett was on it to promote TNA. They showed footage of Johnny Fairplay. They showed footage of Brian Urlacher, footage of the Tennessee Titans beating up Jeff Jarrett. Host Tom Arnold said that's the best thing I've ever seen. So, you know, it's some exposure.
Yeah. It's not a bad idea, again, heading into this TV stuff, so.
Dixie Carter's quote from the press release: "The national telecast of Impact on Fox Sports Net marks a milestone for TNA Entertainment and the wrestling industry." Oh, sorry. I'm stepping on your toes here. Would you like to take that, Liam?
The national telecast.
Dixie is deranged.
The national telecast on Impact of Fox Sports Net marks a milestone for TNA Entertainment and the wrestling industry.
She's become a full mad gold prospector.
Yeah.
Dixie Carter, president of TNA Entertainment LLC, said,
"Total non-stop action. Wrestling has continued to grow and exceed expectations over our history. As we celebrate our second anniversary in June, we are excited this opportunity with Fox Sports Net and Universal Studios Orlando will expose a wider range of viewers to our distinctive brand of professional wrestling. Follow me on Twitter."
A TNA press release explained how TNA is different from the competition. I'm always interested in this.
Is this me?
No, this is a George Greenberg of FSN quote. You're fine.
Can you do it in the style of the TNA pay-per-view video packages?
Oh, sorry. TNA Wrestling separates itself from the competitors by delivering quality family programming that focuses on athletic in-ring competition instead of over-the-top, shocking antics that have become all too common in mainstream.
He's not, like, that's all lies.
To be fair, TNA of the last, 3 months is that.
Oh, sorry, not the 3 months.
The TNA of we're trying to get on television, let's clean up our act, is a clean, normal wrestling product. The TNA before that, maybe not so much. I am pleased about the entertainment value wrestling can bring to FSN. I believe Impact will bolster our Friday afternoon schedule and provide another FSN destination for young viewers. FSN reaches more than 80 million homes through its 20 regional sports networks. And Jarrett told Between the Ropes Radio that Impact will be innovative and have no limits.
Just like the X Division.
Yeah, it's not about television limits, it's about no limits, even though the show literally has time limits, so it is about limits. But outside of such ambiguous cliches, didn't specify the format of the show.
I mean, I think it'll be a wrestling show.
To be fair, they do start making some changes. As we mentioned, we'll talk about it more in the June episode, but they introduced all the Fox box up, the time limit stuff. We'll talk about that next month. But they are also introducing a six-sided ring.
I am unfamiliar with a six-sided ring, Garrett. Could you tell me about it?
So you take a ring and you add 2 more sides.
Well, that's fucking nuts.
And then you have more angles to do springboards off of, and the rope tension is tighter, Mike Tenay would always tell us.
Oh. What if you made it a triangle or a star?
Oh, well, a star ring would be interesting.
Well, if Kota Ibushi gets his way.
I'm not sure how well a triangle ring would work. You'd have to make it quite big.
Yeah, that one seems less plausible. I think a star ring could be done. I just hope you never want to run the ropes.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't want to run the ropes. Maybe that's something Ibushi wants to cut out of professional wrestling.
TNA wrestlers who are scheduled to work the June 3 Orlando taping are concerned that they won't have enough time to work out in the six-sided ring before they work their matches. In most cases, the wrestlers have not worked in that type of ring before. They say that while it may not seem that much different to the untrained eye, it is going to be a bigger adjustment than people seem to realize. It's also worth noting that similar six-sided rings have also been blamed for injuries suffered by AAA and Japanese wrestlers, so the TNA guys have more to be concerned about whether they can have good matches in the new ring.
They probably should fly him out like a day early or something to see guys work out in the ring.
Or just like bring the ring to Nashville.
Oh yeah, do they have a time period where they have a six-sided ring in Orlando and a four-sided ring in Nashville?
No, it seems like at one stage the idea was just to do the six-sided ring for TV, at least early. But from here, like they introduced the six-sided ring in Nashville immediately after they do it in Orlando.
So is this the last month we have of the four-sided ring?
No, the last four-sided ring show will be the June 2nd show. So the debut of the six-sided ring is the June 4th Impact debut, and then the first weekly pay-per-view of June will still have the four-sided ring.
Garrett, would you care to have a brief production meeting on air?
Sure, go.
Should we do a watch-along for the first Impact?
Well, I was thinking because the other show we should do a watch along for in June is probably the debut of King of the Mountain, which is the first show.
Yeah, that was the first one I had in mind.
So we could basically just sit down and do them back to back. We could watch the June 2nd show and then watch the Impact debut, so it would be quite easy because they're sequential.
Sweet.
On-air production, so you'll get 2 watch-alongs coming up for the June episode. 2 whole watch-alongs of the first episode of Impact and the June 2nd weekly pay-per-view.
Yeah, I think the Impact one's fun. I think that's an important one too, and a show that I don't think I've ever seen.
The debut of Impact. It's a good episode.
You'd hope so.
TNA Wrestling will tape its weekly Impact program every Thursday at Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida, at the 22,000 square foot Soundstage 21.
I thought it was going to say 22,000 seat.
It's gigantic. It can hold about 1,200 at full capacity. The way TNA set it up, hold about 900.
America's Kodokan Hole.
In many ways, it is.
In that it is a small, loud venue
that many companies have worked.
Yeah, well, as I like to call it, the elite zone.
I will strangle you.
It's not even the same one, is it? It's a different soundstage.
Yeah, I think they do 19.
Yeah.
Which is one TNA would eventually run because it's smaller.
Mm.
It will draw from theme park attendees. They will set up entrances both so that you can get in if you're a ticket holder, but also you can get in from the outside. A quote from Paul Mina from Universal Studios. "We are thrilled to have Total Nonstop Action's Impact here at Universal. It affords our theme park guests the opportunity to be part of the production audience and cheer for their favorite wrestling icons from a front row seat," quote. TNA will be keeping costs down by flying and paying only 10 TNA wrestlers for each taping each week. I don't think that holds. I think they're actually pretty generous in the end. So yeah, 2 tapings a week now that they will do the live pay-per-view on Wednesday and then fly straight to Orlando to do TV on a Thursday.
I'm interested in seeing how the restrictions of only having 10 people would have worked out.
Because, like, the main event of the first episode is a 6-man match. So it's not a thing they even remotely try and stick to.
That's 60% right there.
And the opener is a 6-man tag, so they're already up to 12, and there's also another tag match, so it's up to 16. So that whole idea...
How many of them are locals?
I have no idea where they got that 10 people idea from PW Torch, but if it was an idea bandied around at any stage, it will not be stuck to. So they are buying time, with the unconfirmed figure being the price of $15,000 a week from the Wrestling Observer. They have control of most of, but not all of the ad time, so they can make some of that money back selling ads.
Yeah, I've thought of a fun thing.
Go on.
Isn't it funny that the first episode of Impact was main evented with a 6-man tag?
It was a 6-man match, but go on.
Fuck. Well, you've ruined everything for me. By your non-specificity.
It opened with a 6-man tag. Does that work? Does that still work?
No, I was going to say that the first episode of Global Force was main evented by a 6-man tag.
To be fair, you could actually tie it to because the opening match is kind of an international X Division match, so it is kind of the same thing as what main evented the first episode of Global Force.
Doesn't count.
Speaking of Global Force leader Jeff Jarrett held a locker room meeting prior to the May 12th pay-per-view to announce the Fox Sports Net deal. Jarrett opened the meeting by thanking the wrestlers for their patience and hard work. He said he had not anticipated what a black eye professional wrestling had in the television industry, adding that he and other office workers had to battle long and hard to get the show on the air. Be like, oh, what a black eye wrestling has. Don't watch our old tapes. Don't watch them. Don't watch them.
Yeah. But I mean, like, let's be real. Like, wrestling isn't exactly the most lucrative TV thing.
But it's their own fault because they have like the lowest common denominator bullshit television that they constantly stoop to.
It was also an industry that at its hottest was based around the lowest common denominator, like, at like pitch and presentation. So, like, they always talk about how like wrestling has some of the lowest ad rates of any television product.
But like they perpetuate the stereotype and then give out about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he's right, but I'm just saying it is a fact that this is an element of the professional wrestling and broadcasting industry.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's wrong either. I'm saying it's his own fault.
Yeah, well, what are you expecting to go up there and be like, hey guys, really sorry we fucked around for the first 2 years, but we're here now?
Yes!
Well, he's not gonna do that.
Because of concerns from FSN executives, because they want a very clean, normal wrestling show, Jarrett reminded the wrestlers to refrain from swearing and making any lewd gestures during their matches. Even Storm, he delivers one of the sorry about your damn looks, he's like, you know what I say about luck. Sorry about your luck. It's like,
sorry about your darn luck.
Dude can't say his catchphrase.
Really is damn too much?
I think he ultimately it's not because he ends up saying his catchphrase, but yeah, it's weird. He also told the crew that the company had hired a new seamstress to help them improve their looks for television. Jarrett added that the company is still in the process of making travel arrangements to get the talent from Nashville to Orlando for the Thursday tapings. There's some concern that they might not be able to make their flights because of their hard night of partying in Nashville.
Maybe they shouldn't party.
They should go do their jobs. They can party on Thursdays after Impact now instead of on Wednesdays after the pay-per-view.
Wrestling is the only industry, man, where you go to your boss and go, hey, it's going to be a problem like getting to work the next day because we're going to party too hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then like that be an actual consideration of the employment being like, yeah, you're right, guys. We'll try and think of something.
We don't want to ruin your vibes and good time.
It's like, just wait till the tapings are done and then go party in fucking Orlando.
Which is probably a better party scene. No, Nashville's a pretty
good
party
city. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure the Orlando scene kicks the Nashville scene's ass.
Some Nashville people are going to come for you for that.
Whatever. Don't you talk nothing bad.
Oh, she seems more cogent than she did earlier.
Don't you
So there's some talk about how they're going to get wrestlers down. There's talk that they might bust them, which wrestlers are very much against, I think for good reason. There's talk that they might also charter flights to fly them down to make sure they can get down on Wednesday night instead of Thursday morning.
This is cool. This feels, I don't know, something about it makes it feel very like Major League presentation, you know what I mean? Just the whole background stuff.
Just that they're on TV, it's like, oh, we have to talk about logistics about going from one taping to the other.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, it feels like anything that's sort of like, some show on the road where it's like, oh, we have to get the group of people to the next thing, and blah, blah, blah. It adds a certain, it doesn't feel like your Nashville indie, you know what I mean?
It's basically like the start of chapter 2 of the company. It's like you had the first chapter, which is the weekly pay-per-views. Now you have the TV era, which I think this, like chapter 2 probably basically runs up to Kurt's debut. And then you have a bunch of other chapters from there, but it does feel like, we're turning a page. It's a new TNA in a new television era.
It's the new face of professional wrestling.
The new Fox Sports Net deal has changed the mood in the locker room. While everyone seems happy the company is taking the step, some of the younger wrestlers are said to be nervous about working in front of a national audience. Although the pay-per-views are technically national, the wrestlers know they will be seen by some more viewers on Fox Sports Net. Some of these wrestlers are said to be concerned that their popularity in Nashville may not carry over to Orlando or the rest of the country. To which I would say, that Nashville crowd is dead silent half the time, so I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. But then you got over there too, so it's fine.
Yeah, if you're good, you'll get over.
The age-old adage.
Meanwhile, some of the veterans who have worked WWE, WCW, or ECW in the past are excited to be getting back in the mix. There are also some wrestlers who are concerned that they will be lost in the shuffle, especially if TNA brings in some bigger names that have been rumored, such as Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Scott Hall, DDP, Kevin Nash, and The Ultimate Warrior.
Cool.
Which does kind of end up happening. So
I don't want any of those people brought in, except Kevin Nash.
I'd take Hall too, but if he wasn't like a mess. Also, I like DDP.
Yeah, I don't know. I like DDP, but I just focus on your own guys. Come on.
All of those people will come in other than Warrior at some stage or another.
Yeah, we were so universally positive about the Hulk Hogan run.
The word backstage is that TNA plans to hit the reset button when they launch the Fsn show on June 4th. Meanwhile, other insiders say that while the company will certainly attempt to spice things up, they will not completely abandon past storylines.
Okay.
So little category A, little category B.
A soft reset, as we say in the biz.
They're third or fourth in the company history already. To be fair, they haven't done any hard resets yet.
But they will.
Oh, and a fun note, on the May 19th show, there was never a mention of the Fox Sports Net deal for the most hilarious of reasons. They mentioned the new TV show and just said, coming to a regional sports network in your area on June 4th, and to check your local listings for the time. Because In Demand and DirecTV consider each other competition, In Demand, which is the prime force behind TNA being on, asked them not to mention Fox Sports Net because of the feeling Fox will buy DirecTV. So there's some fun politics that is stopping them from plugging their wrestling show.
The old Fox USA thing that we're seeing now.
Oh yeah, when WWE was moving from Spike to USA.
Oh, we're seeing it now with current day Fox and USA Network, where they get pissy at each other for hyping up Raw or SmackDown on the other show, and wanting stars on one and the other.
Yeah, there's a fun story when WWE was moving from what was Spike at the time to USA in the mid-2000s. They desperately tried to sneak in mentions that they were leaving Spike.
Yeah, didn't they do the same thing when like Spike was like, they would mention Impact or run Impact ads or something like that at the same time?
No, because Impact wouldn't have been launched until October.
I thought there was like some sort of subtle thing about that. Or maybe that was just like the idea was to get that as the cheaper replacement. Something along those lines.
Because Impact ended up filling the Velocity slot on Spike.
Ooh.
In the end, before moving into better time slots.
That's our next versus show.
Impact versus Velocity.
Yeah.
So yeah, Impact debuting June 4th. I will say, we're already late in this episode, but I will ask for patience for our upcoming couple of months, because it's going to be a pretty rough time where we have June is a 5 pay-per-view month as well, by the way. So June will be 5 pay-per-views and 5 episodes of Impact, maybe 4. I haven't checked that. So the next few months, the June, July, August, and September episodes of the podcast, we'll try to get them out every 2 weeks, but it's a lot of stuff to watch. So we'll do our best, and I will try to wrangle Liam, but it's a lot of stuff to watch.
Garrett, this is Garrett's polite way of saying there will be times where I adamantly refuse to watch the things that I'm being told to watch. Also, just great timing here. I love to be going back to university in next week.
It's only for 4 months, and September is only half a month.
Listen, I'm just gonna have to, I don't know, find a way to implant them into my brain while I'm sleeping.
You should get those Facebook glasses and then just stream them to your eyes while you're walking or driving places.
There you go. I'll start watching them in class.
Yeah, you should. You just put them on like the projector. Everyone can sit down and watch some episodes of Impact.
I have a 3-hour like film study class. I'll just bring in episodes of Impact.
Study the NWA-TNA.
So yeah, it's a lot. But once we're out, we're in the green from now on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we should have no excuse for being late once we get out of the weekly pay-per-view era, because it's 1 hour episodes of Impact and then a pay-per-view.
That's what we've been fighting for this whole time. That's what you've been listening for this whole time. This has all been the preamble to the actual thing we want to cover.
Yeah, this is the chapter 1 of our podcast. We're also moving into chapter 2.
Well, we'll change it. We'll call it something else. Wait, oh my god, when TNA does the name changes, can we change the name of the podcast?
To what?
I don't know, we'll find something.
We'll add NWA to our name as TNA take NWA off of theirs.
That doesn't make any sense.
The big story, the main story from the month of June, the big one, it is the debut of TNA Impact.
Mm-hmm. What a show. And a show that still runs to this very day.
Yeah, we're 900 episodes and 18 years in, and this show's still going. So it is, like, I don't know, it's not to say it's one of those important moments in wrestling history, but it is one of the longest running pro wrestling television shows that is still running today. And here it is, the moment of Genesis.
Aha. That's not this show, though. We'll get to that eventually. Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited for Impact, A, because it's like 40 minutes long, so that's really good, and B, it looks nice and looks like a top professional wrestling show.
Yeah, so they've moved to the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida. They have introduced the six-sided ring, which will be their ring going forward.
Oh, thank God.
Does it make a difference to you watching a six-sided ring?
It makes such a difference to watching this show. It's just something about the general aesthetic of it. Like, before it kind of felt like I was watching this weird shindy with, like, random money put into it. Now it feels like I'm watching TNA.
Yeah, so they have the Fox box at the top of the screen. Every match has a 10-minute time limit, except for title matches, which have a 30-minute time limit. If they go to a time limit draw, it will be decided by the week's celebrity judge, which is, frankly, usually Dusty Rhodes.
Or Larry Zbyszko.
It's Dusty or Larry Z. They did, like, the Impact Zone itself does look major league. It looks professional. They have a bit of pyro. They have the green lasers. They have the dual entrance tunnels on either side of the building.
They have the mist shooting up from the ramp.
Yeah, the crowd's super enthusiastic. It is, like, they've done little things to improve the asylum a little bit this month. I think they, like, got new lights and cameras. It does look a little bit better. But just the contrast of going from the Impact Zone, which does look major league and professional, to the asylum, which still looks a little dingy and downtrodden, is, like, every time I go from an Impact to a pay-per-view, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, but, and then the problem is, and the problem for me watching these shows is it feels Impact looks so much better, but it feels like a B show. Like, you're watching it and it feels like the equivalent of what I imagine would have been watching Explosion. You know what I mean? Like, I watch it and it doesn't feel like anything actually takes place or matters, and none of the stars are on this show. And then the pay-per-view happens and that's where everything actually takes place.
Yeah, because they have themselves a little bit of a pickle for this period where they're doing both. Because they can't really do the good stuff on TV, and you can argue they're not doing good stuff on pay-per-view either, but that's a different point altogether.
But at least they have stars on those shows.
Yeah, but the idea is the TV is there to sell the pay-per-view, which I think at this stage is probably a mistake on the whole, especially doing that on a week-to-week basis, because at least on a monthly pay-per-view cycle, you can give some stuff to TV that you're not going to do on pay-per-view, whereas on a weekly pay-per-view where you know you have to fill 2 hours every Wednesday, you gotta save some stuff for that, and what ultimately ends up happening is you get a bunch of, like, meaningless squash matches and throwaway X Division matches on TV, and it doesn't also help that they really have no stars.
Well, that's the thing, is, like, it feels like something that would help sell these pay-per-views is if you had prominent, well-known guys like a Raven, like a Jeff Jarrett, like anyone, put them on this show, you know? It would do something for the pay-per-views, but those guys don't even show up. There's like one Sabu tag.
Yeah, and like Jarrett's usually on the show in some capacity, but I don't think Raven has been on Impact at all yet. And part of that we'll talk about, he has been injured this month. He got injured early in the month, then re-injured himself in that Sanjay match. So like he hasn't been healthy, but he still hasn't like appeared in many angles or anything on Impact. So like Raven is probably your number 1 or number 2 star, depending how you view him relative to Jeff Jarrett, particularly during this era.
Or how you view him relevant to Jeff Hardy.
Well, yeah, Jeff is obviously number 1 star, big guy, once he debuts toward the end of the month, but he's not there for the start of the month.
But like, even something like, I get, like, you know, Jeff is a one that you give away on pay-per-view, but I don't know, I feel like having Jeff Hardy on your TV might do something for you.
They will. They haven't signed Jeff yet, so...
I know, but you had him.
But they wanted to debut on pay-per-view, and we'll talk about Jeff.
With no build.
There's a reason for that.
Ah, good times.
It might be the classic, they weren't entirely 100% sure he'd actually show up, so they did it on no build.
Fair. Well, we say no build, but there was 4 vignettes the night of.
People calling around. It's like, you see these vignettes that are narrated by Jeff Hardy, obviously, for Jeff Hardy, and obviously made by Jeff Hardy if you freaking watch him. That's the most Jeff Hardy, like, esoteric stuff imaginable.
Well, it's his voice.
Yes.
But, like, it's like that one episode where RVD debuted, and they just mentioned something about it before the ad break. So that everyone would be like, huh?
Except this is a $10 price tag where everyone's like, huh? Everyone's like, huh? $10.
Do you think they sold any pay-per-views mid-pay-per-view on the premise of people going, wait, is that Jeff Hardy?
Like, if you're to say, did they sell one? Probably.
Yeah.
Probably sold one.
From Matt.
Yeah. Especially when you realize it was going to be Hardy against AJ, which I think is a match people would want to see.
Yes. Which is a match I was excited to see.
You know, it's very funny. There's a lot of, like, PW Torch are like, how could you give Jeff Hardy 7 minutes with AJ? It's like, what a burial of AJ that this WWE mid-carder comes in and gets 7 minutes. I was like, one, even in 2004, that I think that's off base. But when you look at like who Jeff Hardy is and who he became, that's such a stupid complaint.
Well, it's funny because like knowing, obviously I wasn't there in 2004, but watching it now, I was like, hey, it's cool. It's like two of the aces in company history wrestling each other.
Especially when you look at the reaction Hardy gets, which is fucking enormous.
Yeah, the Asylum made noise.
I do think the Asylum is better this month, and I think it's mostly because...
do you want to talk about D'Lo versus fucking Monty Brown?
I do think they're gotten to about the idea that they might lose the shows to Orlando, so they're trying again.
Oh, it's like when they started putting takeovers in buildings.
Yeah, it's like, Full Sail was like, no, we will make noise again, we swear.
Please give us the Iron Man match, please.
So yeah, they debuted Impact. It is on the premiere start time of 3 p.m. in the afternoon on Fridays. Not ideal, but better than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go into the notes about the show, let's talk about the episode itself, the debut episode, which I thought, like, say what you will about the episodes that came after and the degree to which it very quickly became a show with enhancement matches that pushes the pay-per-view. I thought that first episode rocked.
I thought that first episode was kind of like if you put the entire first year of TNA's ethos into one episode. Like, if they had fine-tuned their ideas that they presented in early NWA-TNA pay-per-views, this is kind of what it would have been.
Yeah.
Because you had the focus on the X Division multi-man, you had the tag team title match with America's Most Wanted, you had a cool squash with Abyss and then Shark Boy getting an appearance in the show, and most importantly, you had AJ going over in an X Division multi-man to become the champion. Well, become the number one contender. But it was like kind of some easy early parallels to the first like year of NWA-TNA. It's kind of like they saw that and they're like, well, what did people like from our early presentation? Let's do that again for our first TV.
Yeah, and it's like a very firm reboot where it's like, all right, we're on TV now. Everything, we're kind of starting from scratch. So we're going to put the belt on Jarrett. Ugh. We're going to put the X Division title back on AJ, and we're going to put the tag titles on AMW. So in theory, they're like, we're going to put the belts on, like, historically the best act in each of the divisions and run with it that way.
Which makes sense. Something I did enjoy about this month, and I guess because I don't want to leave this to the end when we're like depressed and tired about talking, so I'll do it now at the start. I thought this month had a lot of good build that had too much space to fill. If this was a 4 TV to a pay-per-view month and they did all the same kind of build, I think that would have led up to one really good pay-per-view. Because I thought you had a lot of cool stories going in there. Ironically, the one that I was least high on was probably the Jarrett and Ron Killing stuff. But I really enjoyed the tag title stuff with the Naturals. I really enjoyed the build to Cash and AJ. I enjoyed the Abyss Eric Watts stuff. I even enjoyed, like, if the Pat Kenny tag stuff was just a mid-card thing leading to a pay-per-view, that would have been a fine thing too.
Jarrett Lynn Scott D'Amore as well.
Yeah, Jarrett Lynn Scott D'Amore would have been a good payoff for the pay-per-view. There was a bunch of stuff that I was like, alright, I'm into this as... Like, and then Sabu Raven, right? So there's a lot of stuff that I thought, if this was a condensed thing with not having to fill like 12 hours, this would have been a really good month. But because we're doing pay-per-view every week and a TV every week, they had so much time to fill that everything just got bloated and blown out of proportion, and they had to have the payoffs off on different times because they had to start and get onto the next thing because they had to fill all this time. So going into it, I was like, I actually think the booking-wise, there was a lot of really good stuff this month. It's just the way they're choosing to produce their television and produce their content in general isn't conducive to telling good stories.
They're just stretching themselves, the wrestlers, the stories, and pretty much everything too thin over on average 4 pay-per-views and 4 impacts a month, as opposed to using the impacts to promote the pay-per-views to have payoffs to go back to the impacts. It's just doing that on a week-to-week cycle. It just doesn't work, does it?
Because you're watching these shows and you're like, there is a good pro wrestling company in here. It's just bloated out.
So yes, Impact Episode 1, June 4th, 2004, taped the day before from the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida. 850 people there, total sellout, turn away crowd. Fair enough, it's free, everyone's getting in for free. But still, very enthusiastic audience, felt like a hot promotion.
Yeah, and boy did these guys love themselves some X Division Multi-Man Madness.
Which is what most of the show was, so you know what, they read that crowd properly.
So yeah, going into this this month, one thing, and I think it's smart that they kind of saved him mostly for the Impact Zone. There was some of the pay-per-views, but Hector Garza feels like a guy.
Yeah, and they know he feels like a guy, and he's reached a deal where he'll be in most Wednesdays and Thursdays and then work AAA on the weekends. But they do know very much what they have in Hector Garza, and we'll talk about why it doesn't work out for various reasons. But it is not for lack of trying here. Because, it's weird. The opening match, you would think, put Jarrett there, put Styles there, put Raven there. Raven's not even on the first episode, which is apparently a point of contention for Raven, that he wasn't best pleased that he wasn't on the first episode.
I don't think he's on any of the episodes of TV.
Yeah, because he gets injured early, and I think he gets injured in the dark match on the next episode of Impact. And again, he works that Sanjay match where he aggravates the injury and then is gone for most of the rest of the month, and I think a little while longer. I think he's out for 4 to 6 weeks.
Then the thing with Raven is, though, you just have him talk. Just like one of these Sabu segments that you did on TV, just throw them on this one, I think it'd be fine.
But yeah, it's interesting. They open with Hector Garza, Amazing Red, and Sanjay Dutt versus P. Williams, Eric Young, and Bobby Roode. So they're opening the show with 6 guys who, for the most part, Hector Garza did work WCW, but for the most part have very little experience to the audience. It's not opening with the WWE guys. It is very much a statement of intent that we're putting 6 of our guys out here first. We're going to give them some time. They're going to tear the house down. They're going to have a real darn good 6-man tag.
Well, you look at this whole card and there's not really any WWE guys on it.
Yeah, you get nobody really. Well, there's Dusty and there's Jarrett in a promo and Truth. That's about it. In terms of the actual matches, it's all their homegrown talent.
Yeah, so I think it is a very good first step in. I am, and also just coming out of this personally after watching him for the last 6 months, I am so ready for a Hector Garza AJ Styles match, and if that match doesn't happen, I will be so depressed.
You'll have to see.
Ooh. But I thought this was a really good first impression for Impact, and having a crowd that actually cares helps too.
Yeah, I find that a lot for the TV. 1, the crowd is more interested, and 2, because the matches have like a 10-minute time limit.
It's so good.
And I think because the wrestlers know they're wrestling in front of a larger audience, both more enthusiastic in Orlando and obviously a larger television audience. We'll talk about the numbers in a little bit. But because of that, I do think the wrestlers have a lot more urgency on Impact than they do on the pay-per-views.
Oh, it also feels like, the pay-per-views are where all the big story beats happen, but this is where the better wrestling happens. And I think a part of that it's, the TV does feel more important, even though it's not treated to the same extent. By people's performances and aesthetically, and just watching as a viewer, the TV looks and feels better.
The wrestlers just seem more interested working the TV than they do working the pay-per-views.
They're also probably more excited to be working in Florida.
Anti-Nashville sentiment.
Well, and also they've been in Nashville for 2 years now, just a new environment that's probably a big change of not change of pace, but a change of scenery probably just helps them feel more revitalized.
And it's the first time, well, maybe not the first time, because the people who worked the very first TNA shows probably felt bigly, both the first ones in Nashville that were in the Municipal Auditorium and the first ones in Huntsville. But it's the first time in about 2 years that they probably go to work and it's they see the big proper television studio with the lights and the pyro. It's this actually feels like a major league television presentation as opposed to the Asylum, which is they can make it look relatively professional, but it's far from major league.
Well, the big thing is, it feels like they've gone from indie to that next level above. Because there was some of those Asylum shows looked so indie. And not even indie in the cool way. In the, this is your local indie. But now it feels big and important, and there's production behind it, and there's a crowd that's going off for it. A crowd that's got signs and is into it, that isn't just tnachad.com.
Doing the first, I think, This Is Awesome chance in company history.
Yeah, it was good all around. Everyone seemed to be having a lot more fun with the studio tapings.
Yeah, so Hector Garza pinned Bobby Roode here with the torneo.
Yeah, a fun little match here. I thought Team Canada would go over because they're such a pushed act at this point, but obviously they feel like they have something with Garza because they kind of do. Everyone's really into Garza.
Yeah, and they put Red here, even though he's not pushed whatsoever.
Yeah, I got some things about Red, but I'll save it till the last show.
Red does have a dodgy month. Abyss defeated Shark Boy squash match, Black Hole Slam, then Popeye after the match consoled Shark Boy for his loss.
I desperately want... They showed us a bit on some of the later episodes, but I desperately want more Popeye and Shark Boy hanging out at Universal Studios.
Yeah, they're wandering around, they're going down slides, they're having a good time at Universal Studios.
You know Shark Boy's like, I got a sweet gig with this right now.
You know, AEW should do this with Dark. They should have like Luther and Serpentico going around with whoever the current Universal Studios mascot is.
Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff.
AMW defeated Kid Cash and Dallas to become the NWA World Tag Team Champions for the 4th time.
Yeah, it's good to have the tag team titles and the best act in the company.
Yeah, putting them out front and center, doing a title change on the first episode to make it feel important, and you know, going back to all of your kind of like 1A acts instead of some of the maybe like actually there was nothing wrong with Cash and Dallas as tag champs. They're a good team and good wrestlers.
I've enjoyed Cash and Dallas together, but you know, I like having AMW as the tag team champions. I'm not gonna lie.
It just feels right, doesn't it?
Well, also they better than anyone else. AMW can make matches that you weren't excited for on the mid card of shows exciting.
Particularly perhaps against Monty Brown and Abyss. We'll talk about that in a minute. Mike Tenay introduced Dusty. They did like they went back to another classic TNA well, talking about tradition.
Tradition, and later on they introduced someone who's offended at how New York's been treated. So
all of the classic TNA stories.
Just no women in cages yet.
So yeah, Dusty's talking about tradition. And Jarrett comes out, calls Dusty old and washed up. He just says he's going to take 5 paces and Dusty better be gone. Dusty was not gone. Slapped him with his hat, started punching him. Jarrett makes a comeback, grabs the guitar. Truth makes the save, but Truth's a giant dork, so he gets hit with the guitar instead of Dusty before Trill K makes the actual save.
So, we aren't at the peak, but we are firmly in Jeff Jarrett chair shot wee whoop time. Like, this is what, when people think of Jeff Jarrett, this is what they think of.
Yeah.
And they managed to kind of toe the line early on and not be this, but now we are firmly in it. I think there will be a time where it gets to almost the point of parody, but right now it's just earnest, which I don't know if that makes it worse or better, but we haven't gone to, we get the joke. This is just them doing it, and it's, like, over the top. Although, there's a great payoff to it in the Truth match.
Yeah, and it's the guitar is the story of the month, but we'll talk about that when we're doing broad topics. But yeah, it's particularly egregious here, I think, because, you know, Jarrett goes to hit Dusty, Truth makes the save, and that's the end of your segment, you know?
Yeah.
You're literally doing it just so Jarrett can have the last laugh and Truth will look like a nerd on your television debut.
And we're hitting the second feud now. Maybe we should keep a tally as we go on. But this is the second Jarrett title feud where it feels like the only payoff worth having is him losing the title. But that isn't what happens.
Not for a very long time.
So we've had a first victim of not winning the title when they need to, Chris Harris. Second victim, Ron Killings. I'm sure we will see how this list progresses as we continue on.
They did a feature on the X Division. Then we have the new backstage interviewer, Shane Douglas. We'll talk about that in a sec. He wants to know who the 4th man in the main event is. He's asking Vince Russo. It's an X Division #1 contenders match. We know Chris Sabin, Neil Skipper, and Michael Shane are 3 of the 4. Turns out the 4th man returning to the X Division is the phenomenal AJ Styles.
Yeah, and I mean, listen. Am I happy that AJ Styles isn't, like, the NWA champion? No. But when he was sucked up in Vince Russo, Jeff Jarrett bullshit, so maybe just having him as the face of the X Division is just is better for him.
I know like TNA at the time would make the argument that the X Division is not lesser than its equal, which at this stage isn't true. I think AJ makes it true because he's fucking better than everybody else in the company. So by the time we reach 2005, I think AJ single-handedly makes that true, and maybe even the X Division is greater than rather than lesser than. So like here it is very clear, shunted down to the X division, not across. But also, I think you're right that he's just better off here, where you can have good matches with good wrestlers and not have to deal with the endless slew of bullshit that comes with guitar shots and hidden guitars and multiple authority figures and all the nonsense that comes with Jeff Jarrett, comes with Vince Russo, comes with the main event scene. He can just be AJ. And I think this month more than any month, he is AJ. Like, he is the AJ of TNA that you know. Like, the TNA ace AJ Styles. He feels like that this month.
And, like, you just look at it. Would you rather be AJ Styles this month or Ron Killings this month?
That's a very easy answer.
So, there you go. Which position is it better to be in?
Yeah, so Styles pins Shane with the Styles Clash. Kazarian comes down, stare down AJ because they'll face for the title in the next pay-per-view. That's the first episode of Impact. As I said, I thought this was a really good statement of intent. I was going to say it's a good representation of what TNA is. I think it's almost a misrepresentation of what TNA is.
It's a representation of what TNA could be and what a lot of people maybe wanted TNA to be and what TNA complains that their fans don't perceive TNA to be.
It's like, hey, you did it for a night. How about you do it every night?
Which I think, I mean, that's every company, right? That's every company, especially in American pro wrestling, ever. It's like, when they hit it, you're like, why can't you hit it all the time?
Because you had like guys like Garza, guys like Abyss, guys like MW, guys like AJ being the featured acts as well as Jarrett. And it felt hot. It felt high energy. It was a really fast hour of wrestling. It was, I think, as perfect of a debut episode as they could have asked for.
Like I said, it's a good representation for a lot of people who may have seen them for the first time. I wonder how many pay-per-views this sold, though.
Yeah, I would say not very many, and I think ultimately the answer is not very many.
Yeah. I don't know if I saw this, I was like, oh man, I have to tune in the pay-per-view to see what happened with 3LK and Jeff Jarrett.
I'm sure, like, the first few got a curiosity bump. And especially because, like, the anniversary show was at least, like, a very hard-pushed show, which is the third or fourth show of the month. So I'm sure a couple of those got a little bit of a boost. And, like, the Asylum attendances went up, and the Asylum energy went up a little bit. But I think by the time you get to July, people are just happy watching their Impact and happy avoiding the weekly pay-per-views.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think the anniversary pay-per-view did feel big. I don't think it necessarily hit everything out of the park, but I was watching it and I was like, this does feel like a big, important show.
So a bunch of notes about Impact itself. In a few markets, their regional sports channel preempts TNA Impact for other programming, but the vast majority see the show at the standard Friday 3 p.m. time slot. I think it's New York and Philly are a couple of those markets where it's preempted and they're aired at real weird times. So it is strong wrestling markets where it's being preempted, but nonetheless they still have clearance across the majority of the FSN networks. Because if you remember, FSN is not like one. Well, it does have a national feed, but it's not generally one channel. It's a collection of regional sports networks that have some national programming, but the big attraction is the local sports. And for the most part, they got clearance across all of those regional sports networks. There, 3 in the afternoon on Fridays.
It's kind of what you saw with Ring of Honor and Sinclair's networks.
Yeah, if you were trying to look at the time Ring of Honor aired at, it was all over the place.
Which was also impossible to track down. And even because they used to upload their shows the week after on their website, but because of the nature of how it aired, sometimes it just wouldn't be on there for 2 days extra. And you're like, what is going on?
You really wanted to see the Ring of Honor Pure tournament and they were keeping it away from you.
No, this was before that. This was I really wanted to see the Briscoes take on the Headbangers or some shit.
The first show received rave reviews for its state-of-the-art presentation and production values. The decision to begin and end the show with X-Division matches was not without its second-guessers, but ultimately Jeff Jarrett and Josh Mantell decided the best way to combat WWE and grab attention of channel flippers was to fight WWE on a different level, one in which they can't compete or won't compete, and that being contemporary athleticism and high spots.
That's a reasonable and balanced take on how to present your show in comparison to the biggest show in the world.
Yeah, so instead of sending Raven out there immediately, instead of doing the Dusty and Jarrett segment to open the show, they're like, nope, we're going to go high energy, wrestlers you've not seen before. This is TNA.
But, you can sprinkle some Raven in there, I feel. I don't think you need to cut him out completely.
Well, Jarrett makes the case that they need a clean slate heel champion for the start of television. If you listen to his podcast, they talk about this, that he's like, television is something new. It's a new audience. We need to start from scratch. And the easiest way to do that is heel champion, babyface chase, which is not a completely illegitimate argument. But then the question would be, well, why did it have to be you, Jeff? Why did you have to be the heel champion? Why couldn't it be Raven?
Why couldn't it be heel Raven doing this with anyone else?
Because if I'm honest, if I were to see that argument, I think I would go, let's go with Raven. Like, he has the name from WCW and WWE. It'll be his first title run. It'll feel fresh. He's been doing good stuff for the most part up and down our card for a year and a half now. Let's pull the trigger on Raven going into TV and have AJ and Harris chase him. But Jarrett's like, no, I'm going to pull the trigger on me again for the third time. I'm going to have Truth chase me and kick AJ and Harris off to the secondary divisions. It feels a lot like a man who wants to make a television show all about himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's bits and pieces here to it. I see some points, I see things that feel like giant mistakes, but what are you going to do at this point,
Mm.
Let's just see where it goes.
You're going to be saying that for a year, buddy.
Yeah. But when he loses, it's going to be such a good moment. Right, Garrett?
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yep, definitely.
It's gonna be worth it, right?
100%. And the guy who beats him is going to have a really long reign. Really long. Super long reign. Bob Carter, the head of Pound Energy, was present at the Universal Studios tapings and appeared to be pleased with the experience.
Me too, Bob.
Vince McMahon said in an interview on TSN in Canada that he doesn't consider TNA competition because they're wrestling, we're entertainment.
Yeah, well, Vince, how about Paul saying this week or whatever that we're wrestling now? How do you feel about that, Vince?
Yeah, it only took 18 years, but we finally proved the TNA won this war. And wrestling wins.
They brought wrestling back. Well, I mean, NXT was basically a TNA parody company.
TNA saved professional wrestling is what I'm saying, Liam.
And put it on a shirt.
Well, they were thinking about that. There are people internally who want to use that they're wrestling or we're wrestling their entertainment or whatever Vince said. The direct quote from Vince, as the marketing slogan, which they probably should have.
I was gonna say that's not bad. They're wrestling, we're entertainment. Vince McMahon.
There were 3 matches that took place at the debut Impact tapings at Universal Studios on June 3rd that did not air the next day. The opening match, Sonny Siaki and Irish Pat Kenny, and Desire beat Trinity, Glenn Gilberti, Johnny Swinger. Heavy Metal beat Frankie Kazarian, and then there was a big gauntlet that Ron Killings won, eliminating Monty Brown in the end.
I'm glad that those weren't the matches they chose.
Yeah, so they flew a bunch of people down there just to wrestle random matches. I don't think they've ever released any of those matches. I assume they taped them.
Have to track them down. Holy
Grails!
Coming soon to the Patreon.
This Ron Killings gauntlet match. We need to see it.
Pat Kenny versus Sonny Siaki or whatever it was.
Heavy Metal against Frankie Kazarian? Whoa!
Well, that I do want to see. Desire and Trinity before they do the worst match I've ever seen?
Before the show began, Jimmy Hart and Johnny Fairplay welcomed the fans. They didn't put Fairplay on TV, which is a point of contention for Fairplay that we'll talk about in a sec as well. But yeah, Jimmy Hart has a bigger backstage role with TNA these days. He's the point guy for Universal Studios, and he's working backstage.
Okay, Jimmy.
And obviously waiting to get Hulk Hogan back in.
Yeah, Hulk Hogan's coming in any day now.
Jeff Jarrett was on a local Orlando radio station called Monsters in the Morning on Thursday to promote the debut of Impact that night. He got into an argument with the host as an angle to get people talking, to get them down to the Impact Zone.
Cool.
TNA management was extremely pleased.
Jeff Jarrett loves doing local radio.
He loves doing local radio angles as well. He can never just go on the show. He always has to do a bit.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's a heel, They're not sending AJ up there to do it, are they?
Because in the build to the Hogan thing, remember when they did the Jimmy Hart angle where he stormed the radio station?
That was a good angle, though, to be fair.
Yeah, they should have recorded this one too.
That was in his Stone Cold days.
He's still in his Stone Cold days.
No, he's not. This is wee whoop guitar shot, Jeff Jarrett.
TNA management was extremely pleased with the Thursday night tapings in Orlando, even before they began post-production work. Part of the reason is the crowd couldn't have been better. They were enthusiastic, many of them knew TNA's top wrestlers, and it was mostly teenage and 20-something guys, giving the crowd a more hip feel than the Nashville Fairgrounds where the pay-per-views take place.
The key demo.
Young men. Jerry Moore even remarked to the crowd that they were better looking than the Nashville crowd, and he'll take some heat for that.
Well, it's fine. None of the Nashville crowd know how to work the computer anyway. I'm the Jeremy Borash of this podcast. I love the Florida crowd.
Bunch of hideous uggos over there in the asylum. Look at you pretty people here in the impact zone.
Thank God we're getting out of that schlop.
In a press release announcing the use of the six-sided ring for the Fox Sports Net show, Jeff Jarrett said, "The six-sided ring brings professional wrestling into the 21st century. Wrestling, like any sport, must evolve through time, and total non-stop action wrestling's continued innovation is an example of that. Our athletes will now have more angles, moves, and space to showcase themselves, and TNA wrestling as the new wrestling alternative."
That's me trying to talk to Scott in 2022 about bringing back the six-sided ring.
They do constantly talk, like anytime somebody does a dive, Mike Tenay is always like, that's because of the six-sided ring. It's like, there's more angles, there's more sides, there's more stuff they can do.
But to be fair, I get that. Like, for a lot of people, this is the first time they're seeing a six-sided ring. Why not, like, push it as like, wow, look how cool and interesting and different this is. We're wrestling, they're entertainment.
Oh, that should be their slogan.
Yeah.
I find this one interesting because I think like 10 years later the flip side becomes the case, but TNA wrestlers are excited that due to tourists at Universal Studios every week, many fans each week in the arena will not be weekly regulars. In the Asylum in Nashville, the regulars tend to get burned out on certain characters and somewhat jaded, so a fresh mix of fans each week, TNA wrestlers and management feel, would help keep fan reaction remain at a higher level.
I think good shows keep the fan reaction at a high level.
They keep doing this, don't they? It's like there's some magic reason that the crowd aren't responding other than the shows are good or bad.
Yeah, that's every cop-out from every promoter ever.
Because the exact same, like the exact opposite thing begins to happen like in Orlando. It's like, oh, it's only a bunch of tourists who don't care, so they're not making noise. Even though you watch this episode of iMPACT and you see them absolutely lose their shit at freaking every single dive. So Sanjay does do a Dragon Rana in that first match. That is worth losing your shit at.
There's a lot of stuff worth losing your shit at on that first show.
Yeah, just produce good television and people will react to it. Stop making excuses for your crowd not giving a shit about your shitty, boring television.
Mm-hmm.
Fans had begun to line up for the debut of iMPACT at 2 p.m. in the afternoon and waited in line for 5 hours in 100-degree high humidity weather.
Well, let me just do a little bit of math to see if I'm impressed by this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's warm. Yeah, I wouldn't like doing it in a humid 37. Oh, like if it was a sunny 37, grow up. That's a great day.
Let it be known, 37 degrees is warmer than it has ever been in Ireland. Ever.
Trust me, we were discussing this heat wave that you're going through lately.
Which was like 2 days where it broke 30 and then back down to like below 20. And we're like, no, we can't handle it. It's too much for us.
I do hate to be like the I come from hot place, ha 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 thing, but literally have had 50-degree days where my car has started melting to the road.
Yeah, but have you considered that it's 30 degrees here and it's very hot?
Sounds like a wonderful day. As long as it's not humid. Humid in 30s sucks. That I will admit.
It's like the highest temperature in the history of Ireland is 33. So there you go. And that was in like 1890. So
50.8
is the highest recorded temperature in Australia.
In Mildura. I think it's been higher since then. I think we hit above that, but yeah. Just awful. 50.7. I wonder what Melbourne is. Because I'm pretty sure we held it for a while.
You were like the death pit of Australia.
Well, just Victoria. Melbourne's highest is 47.
That's nothing compared to your 50.8.
A paltry 47 in February of 2009. But, like, which is funny because, like, that's just, like, one section. Like, you go to, like, you know, the 60% of our country that is desert that we never talk about.
Where there aren't people, the weather doesn't count.
Yeah, basically. I mean, how are we supposed to know?
There's no one. Only the kangaroos know how hot it's out there.
And the camels.
There is concern among the wrestlers as to whether Impact viewers will accept the low-budget qualities of the pay-per-view events held in Nashville. They have to get out of Nashville now, said one wrestler. Others say that while the production downgrades will disappoint some viewers, they expect most fans to be satisfied as long as the matches and storylines are strong.
Well, then, the fans are going to be satisfied. That's some really optimistic thinking.
There has been some talk since the show that company officials were considering the idea of moving the pay-per-views to Orlando as well. However, an informed source reports that the first planning to upgrade the set, lighting, and production in Nashville and keep the Wednesday shows there.
Please, God, just cancel the shows. I'm begging you. Jeff, I'm going back to the future to tell you, please just stop the shows.
Just immediately switch to the monthly pay-per-view model. You'll be much better off.
What if we just skip the next, 2 months?
Nope.
Well, it was worth a shot, guys. I tried my best.
The word being spread out of the TNA office is that FX officials were blown away by the Impact debut and have expressed interest in bringing the show to primetime on their cable network. Of course, both FX and Fox Sports are owned by Fox, so if FX is serious enough, they should be able to work something out quickly.
Hell yeah, I want to do my Walking Dead x TNA crossovers.
Two things that kept going long past the point they should have.
I think Walking Dead is still going.
God, and there's 3 spin-offs. How have they not given up on The Walking Dead yet?
Well, they're doing a new one that brings back all the characters people liked, so I think that one's going to do well.
Oh, that's nice.
They're like, hey, what if all the characters that made this show popular were back? Everyone's like, wait a minute.
That's revolutionary thinking.
I should finish that show eventually, just out of a point of pride.
I don't know, if keep it still going, there's just no end point. Even if there's spin-offs, it just never ends.
Well, the spin-offs are still going, but it's the last season of The Walking Dead proper.
I don't know, every season of that show is the exact same.
Yeah.
It's all we have found a place we think will be our safe haven. Oh no, it's not! And that, rinse and repeat, season after season.
I mean, wouldn't that be how it is?
Yeah, but you have to find some new interesting story to tell instead of
But Garrett, what if I told you the people were the real monsters?
Whoa, that's a revolutionary take, Liam. You should write something.
Yeah. It's not the zombies.
It's the people. I see how it is.
It's the people. They have tigers and swords. And no morals.
Dusty Rhodes is trying to angle himself into power. He was suggesting pushing for a 9 p.m. Monday time slot, which was the consensus among just about everyone asked, including both Jarrett's, if they could pick their slot on FX. Right now, they are only in early talking stages. Fucking leave the Monday Night War dead, you stupid idiots.
I like how they're all this is their idea, let's go. Not just, hey, maybe if we put it on our own night, people might watch it. Yeah. But, I don't know. I want to see, again, this is my problem. I hear things like this and I'm I want to know what that world looks like. The world where they got on FX.
And went to war?
No, it's not necessarily on the Monday time slot. Because I know what would happen if they went to war. We saw it in 10 years from now.
And that was during a period when they had millions of viewers watching every week as opposed to hundreds of thousands.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of hundreds of thousands.
So the debut of Impact on June 4th drew a preliminary number of a 0.16 rating based on markets that aired in its regular time slot.
TNA in the mud.
That would translate to maybe 100,000 homes.
That's a Rampage number.
The final ratings for these shows, because of the different time slots of figuring in different stations, won't be available until 3 weeks after the show takes place. For the network in the time slot, it was considered a good number. That is roughly half of what the network's flagship Best Damn Sports show does at night.
But Garrett,
yeah,
what is the demo?
We don't care about the demo here. We just care about total audience.
What? But the demo is the most important, Garrett, because that's the one that the advertisers look at. Don't you know? After the last 3 years of constant discussion.
No, I don't.
Where's my Fast National?
This is the Fast National, basically.
Oh, cool. When is our cheese board?
Yeah, come on, Dixie.
Oh, follow her on Twitter.
Send us a ham.
Ooh, I need the ham.
So that number was revised from a 0.16 up to a 0.22 when the final number came in. And then the second episode did a 0.32 rating, which would be in like the 200 and something thousand range, the low 200,000s. Those are Dave estimates, by the way, I believe, not the actual numbers. The audience figure, not the rating. The ratings are accurate. The audience figure is a Dave guesstimate based on the rating. But yeah, so they're doing somewhere in like the 150, 200,000 range, which is pretty good on FSN. It's up there with what FSN is doing for their Best Damn Sports show, which is their flagship show that's not local sports. So good numbers, basically.
Damn, that's like half of Ring of Honor towards the end.
And Ring of Honor aired on like 700 different networks.
Remember that day that came out and like I forgot Joe Copper, but it was like, yeah, it's in like 600,000 homes. And you're like, whoa, I don't believe you.
Yeah, it's mostly like 70-year-olds falling asleep with Ring of Honor on after the local news. But
I mean, hey, if it works for NXT 2.0,
it's true. That is the prime demographic you're aiming for.
Do you think wrestling is just the olds? Is that the problem?
I think it's made by people who have been making it for 20 years and have no idea what young people want.
And remember, if you are a rich fan of the show, you can donate to us. And for a small donation of $9.7 million, we will start up a promotion with you.
Like, even when you look at Tony Khan, who is a young person, like, his influences are old wrestling. So that bleeds onto his show. So, like, his show isn't even, like, the bastion of wrestling aimed at young people. It's just wrestling. It's good wrestling, but it's still just wrestling. So there's nothing really in wrestling in the last 20 years that's like NXT 2.0 is trying in the obnoxious way, where it's like, we're gonna have Wade Barrett say simp every 15 seconds. It's like,
it's lit.
That's how do you do fellow kids wrestling. But yeah, there's no new wrestling for young people.
One day maybe, huh?
Well, in theory, that's what WWE is, right? They're the kid wrestling that graduate to the AEW, which is the teen and adult wrestling.
Well, sure. I mean, in theory, it was Dragon Gate for like a decade.
For US fans?
Oh, no, I meant in general. I can't really think of anything else.
Yeah.
I can't say there's any promotion for the youths.
No.
Maybe it is just WWE based on like
scale.
Based on scale, yeah. Like maybe like that is just how it is. But you know, I also feel like this is a very weird tangent to go off on. But hey, we're doing a wrestling podcast. Let's talk about wrestling. I think that as WWE has become slightly more niche while keeping a lot of its global presence, that other wrestling has started to come with it. Like nowadays, people who find WWE are very quick to find an AEW or a New Japan or Indies. You know what I mean? I think the crossover is more than there has been in a long, long time, because now I have people who go up to me and they're like, "Oh, I used to watch WWE, but I saw this AEW thing," and I'm like, "That's crazy to me." Because I've only grown up ever in a world where, like, here people called wrestling WWE.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't say, you like wrestling. They say, oh, you like WWE. Like, and I feel like that perception has changed a lot recently.
It helps when you have a strong number two competing.
Well, yes. But, I mean, like, I think this change has been in the air since, like, 2015. I don't think it's been at a peak, but I think it's been trending in this direction.
I do think it largely comes from the internet being pervasive. That, you know, back in 1999, you knew WWE, you knew WCW, and there was no way for a smaller company really to break through without television. Whereas now, if you Google wrestling, you'll get like a smorgasbord of just tons of different wrestling companies. Or that was just harder to do. It was just harder to find out about other things in 1999.
But also, like, if you're like 15-year-old WWE fan and you follow them on YouTube and you click a WWE clip, there's a good chance an AEW clip will pop up right next to it.
Yeah, the algorithm is helping.
Yeah. But like, yeah, and that's not even just AEW. There's a good chance of like, you search any wrestling thing, you click on it, then like an Impact clip will come up, or some indie that I had a match with someone related to it in it at one point will come up. Like, it's not hard. It's not hard to be accidentally exposed to other elements of wrestling now.
Yeah, even if you're searching for Sting, you might find a WCW clip, you might find a WWE clip, you might find an AEW clip, or you might find a TNA clip.
Yeah, which you know, and even like if it's something that's like Oh, I'm going to search Kevin Owens. Oh, Kevin Owens rumored AEW videos, 17 of them in a row. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's no way for you to be completely in the bubble anymore. Like, even if you're just someone who watches WWE SmackDown and WWE Raw, there's no way to be in the bubble anymore.
Unless you're like a 50-year-old who doesn't use the internet.
Because there's references to other companies now. So, like, just by watching the one promotion, you're gonna pick up some things. Like, if you've, in the last 5 years, if you were someone who literally only watched SmackDown and Raw and never went on the computer ever, you will still have heard of New Japan. And you would have heard a reference to AEW. Because they were things that were just mentioned now.
Which is good. That's the way it should be.
Yeah. Well, it's like if you're that person, at some point, you know that AJ Styles was an IWGP champion in Japan.
You wouldn't know he's a TNA champion, though.
Well, that's wrestling, their entertainment.
Oh, of course, yes. That's my mistake.
Yeah.
New Japan, famously, also entertainment.
Yes. I mean, have you seen it? But yeah, like, in general, like, it's just a more open, easily accessible world, which I guess just comes with the passage of time and the way that the internet and social media has evolved. And Logan Paul.
Well, yeah, Logan Paul helps too. He's the man of the youth warrior.
He's impulsive.
God damn it. The Paul there is actually referring to Triple H, not Logan Paul.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm a politician. A Logan politician.
There was considerable controversy about Fair Play not being on the first TV show, and some regarding Raven as well. The feeling was that Fair Play put TNA over on the final Survivor episode and the company hasn't used him. The flip side is the feeling that he's not worthy as a performer because he gets so fidgety and nervous. He was openly complaining at the show and went to owner Bob Carter, who made a rare appearance at the show, not realizing that it hasn't done anyone any good to go over Jeff Jarrett's head because the Carters know that they don't know wrestling like the Jarretts and leave the talent decisions to them. So old Johnny Fairplay wants to get himself on television and just stuck his mouth in it.
I mean, I don't blame him, but like, isn't he like one of the few guys who are actually signed to a deal?
Well, like most of the wrestlers are signed to deals these days because of television, but yeah, they signed him to a deal and he's not the show. Though there's a vignette for him to debut at the very last show of the month, the last Impact.
Yeah, so we will see how that goes.
Yeah, so old Johnny Fairplay being out in the cold. He's put over TNA on Survivor. TNA's just using Johnny Fairplay for his clout, not willing to give Johnny Fairplay opportunities.
I mean, yeah.
Which should be how you do it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, yes. That's how being a celebrity guy works, man.